Now, what did Christians do during their gathering? What did they do on the Lord's Day? So there's a few things they did. Number one is they actually gathered. In 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 18, it says, first of all, when you come together as a church. So Paul is saying to Corinthians, he says, I hear there's some divisions among you, and in part I believe. Have you noticed when you come together? So this was not like every person watching the live stream. This was not every person to himself and just talking to God. When you come together. Later on in 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verse 24, Paul says, therefore, if the whole church comes together in one place and all speak in tongues, there come in those who are uninformed or unbelievers, and they might say that you're out of your mind. In other words, I want to emphasize, believers got together. So on the Lord's Day, which is Sunday, believers got together. And that's what we should do. For those of you who do not go to a church, and you are able to go to a church, like scripturally speaking, even though it's not a commandment, but you're part of the body, and you have to gather. You have to come together, and the government shouldn't stop you from that. Fear of COVID shouldn't stop you from that. We're not saying not to exercise wisdom and discretion, but a lot of people have stayed too long at home. A lot of people have stayed too long from gathering. We are a church, we are a body, and we have to gather. So on the Lord's Day, not only they gathered, number two is they worshiped. In Ephesians chapter 5, verse 19, it says, speaking to one another in psalms and hymns. So pretty much, Paul is saying that we have to come together and sing. We come together and worship. We come together and praise God. And that's what we do on Sundays. That's what we do during our church time. The third thing that we do when we come together is pray. That's why Paul corrected the prayer in tongues, and he was saying when you come together, like don't just out loud speak in tongues and other people don't know what you're saying. He's saying that I want you to pray to God, in tongues, like privately, but then if you're speaking like in the microphone or speaking out loud in front of other believers, make sure that your prayer is something that brings edification to other people. Number 4 is preaching. Paul says to Timothy, in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 2, he says, preach the word. So he's speaking to a young preacher, and where's Timothy going to preach that? To the church. When the church would gather together, we preach the word. And the 5th thing that the early church did when they would gather together is they would practice ordinances. So for us as Christians, we have these 2 things that the Lord has given for us to do, and that is the water baptism and the taking of Holy Communion. And so when we gather together, actually believers would gather together and break bread. That's when they would celebrate communion. And then believers would also get baptized. So as we come together, we have an opportunity to take communion, and we have the opportunity as well as to get water baptized. And the 5th final thing that we can do when we come together is actually serve or give. Because Paul is saying that when you come together on the first day of the week, bring your gifts or bring your things to the Lord that you want to give financially as the Lord prospers you, meaning proportional to your prosperity. And so we're not just coming to worship, we're not just coming to hear the word, we're not just coming to be with other believers, we're not just coming to celebrate the Lord's Supper and water baptism, we're also coming to express our thanksgiving, generosity, and trust in God. Now, let me speak to you frankly. We have a generation today that has fallen out of habit of coming to church. In fact, we are warned in Hebrews not to forsake assembling of ourselves together. I understand we are going through, and maybe by the time of this video, perhaps the COVID has already ran its course. Most likely, it probably won't. The world is only going to get crazier, but we as Christians should not forsake our assembling together. Now, you may say, well, Vlad, the government says we can't gather together because it's not safe. But come on, can we be honest? It's still safe to go to a movie theater. It's still safe to go hiking. It's still safe to go to a grocery store. It's still safe to protest. So if it's safe to do all of these things and the government's completely fine, then it is safe to meet together as believers. You have to prioritize your spiritual growth by being in the assembly. As a Christian, you are an organ in the body. You are not an organ in the bank. Meaning you belong in the body. You don't belong in some kind of a secluded island. I grew up, my family came from a place in former Soviet Union where you couldn't gather together. And the government had a reason why Christians should not be gathering together. They would crack down upon church houses and gatherings of believers, and they would put them in jail for that. And guess what believers did? They didn't blindly obey the government. Believers still gathered together. Because like Peter and John told the Pharisees, they said, we must obey God. When what man says and what God says contradict, we obey God. I'm all for online experience. I'm all for online church. I'm all for that. But if you have the opportunity in your area to go to a local church and you choose not to out of laziness, out of, oh, it's a family day, I'm just gonna prioritize time with my wife and everything. If you make your family an idol, your idol will disappoint you. Your family should serve God, not you serving your family. You should serve God with your family. Bring your children to church. Take your spouse to church. Men, husbands, be a priest in your house. Worship God on the Lord's Day. Gather together with believers. You may say, do I have to? No, you get to do that. You will spiritually grow. You will be able to fight loneliness, temptations. God can encounter you. The Spirit of God can fall on the day of Pentecost. God will begin to separate your light and darkness through the preaching of God's Word. God's presence will begin to come upon you as you worship together with other believers. Now, does that replace your personal private devotions? Of course not. But it supplements. And it's very important that we as Christians begin to prioritize our gathering together. Maybe you don't find a good, perfect church, and you say, Vlad, the reason why I don't go to church is because all the churches are full of hypocrites. Well, there's room for one more. All of us are hypocrites on our worst day. Well, Walmart has hypocrites. You still go to Walmart. Maybe you're going to saying that, the reason why I don't go to a church is because I get nothing out of it. Well, perhaps you have outgrown being a baby who comes and receives, and you need to actually sign up and take the next step and start serving. I don't go on Sunday morning to church to be fed. I go on Sunday morning to serve. Now, do I receive? Yes. But the way I receive now is by serving, not by somebody serving me. I get replenished, renewed, revived, re-energized every weekend because of serving, not because somebody serves me. So maybe you've outgrown that baby stage and now you're complaining why you are not getting anything. Your pastor's sermons are boring, there's no depth in there. But maybe you simply have overstayed your baby or your selfish stage, and you need to, I know this is a strong word, but you need to start serving. You need to start participating. Stop critiquing, stop criticizing, and honestly, start serving. Sign up for kids ministry. Sign up for ushers. Sign up to help with the media department and serve. That's the day where we come and we serve. Maybe some of you don't get anything out of your church. Can I just be very honest? And don't log off right now. Can I just be very honest? Because you stopped giving. You can't get anything out if your heart is not in it. The Bible says where your treasure is, there is your heart. When you don't give to your local church, don't complain if you're getting anything out, because there's somebody else who's probably getting something out of it. Why? Because they're invested. If you're just a spectator, not a participator, and you're not an investor in what God is doing at the local church, my friend, you have no right to complain. Start serving, start giving, start praying for your church, come earlier, participate in what God is doing on this earth, and He does that through a local church. God is pro-church. It's His bride, it's His building, and it's what God is doing on this earth today.
That's our time in this video. I believe you were inspired by it. Then give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you're new to this channel for more great content like this. Remember to take responsibility on what you learned today. This video is proudly sponsored by our patrons. You too can support this channel by visiting our Patreon page. The link is in the video description below. I want to say a big thank you to all our patrons out there. I am Bodas Jumesi from Wisdom for Dominion. Thank you for watching and see you in our next video.